Welcome to In the Zone. I'm Joshua Gearhart, joined by Miles Miller, and this episode we'll be breaking down the latest in the NFL, college football, and more. In the Zone starts right now.
And Manning's going to heave one.
On its way. It bounces off the crossbar, and it's good. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Murray heaves it downfield. It is. Oh, it's caught. It is caught.
Once again, Penn State has gotten off to a good start this season. Last year, Auburn and Penn State went head-to-head in Happy Valley. This year, the rematch between the two teams went down in Auburn. Penn State ran all over Auburn, winning 41-12. Josh, I imagine you're pretty happy with Penn State right now.
Miles, let me tell you how I really feel. Give me that Nittany Lion helmet.
Oh, don't do it now. Yeah, Penn State all the way?
All the way, baby. You know, everybody all week was talking all along about the two-headed monster at Auburn. Bull crap. You know, Tank Bigsby was held under to 50 rushing yards. Under 50 rushing yards. And you know who the real star of the game was in my mind? Nick Singleton. A true freshman, Miles. Nick Singleton had 10 carries for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns in Jordan-Hare Stadium. In Jordan-Hare. You know, and the best thing for me is I saw a video of when Penn State's bus pulled up to Jordan-Hare Stadium. Auburn fans waited along the streets to greet them. And I'm not kidding you. They waited there until the players got out to flip every single one of them off. Poetic justice, if you ask me. And I'm going to say a really hot take here right now.
What you got?
Out of all the conferences in college football, Big Ten, SEC, Pac-12, Big 12, Penn State has the best secondary out of anybody in college football right now. And I'll tell you why. One man in particular, Joey Porter Jr. Joey Porter Jr. is that lockdown cornerback that Penn State has been looking for years. And I know people talk all the time about linebacker U, linebacker U. They have the next linebacker star in Penn State right now in Abdul Carter. And again, wearing the number 11, that seems to be a historical, terrific number for Penn State players. You know, you have, LeVar Arrington, you have Micah Parsons. You have all these big-name people wearing the number 11. And, Penn State really kind of shut down that Auburn offense. You know, B.J. Finley, and Ashford, there's no offense. There's no dynamic passing attack that Auburn has that concern Penn State. And people were saying about how, could Penn State contain the passing attack? Could they contain the running attack? They did both.
They did.
And their defense right now, under Manny Diaz, is playing like a 5-star defense. And one of my favorite players on that team is probably Jair Brown, who, if people don't know his story, he actually started out at a community college, had no Power 5 offers coming out of his senior year in high school. And after he took some time in community college, perfected his craft, now he's a leader on that Penn State defense.
We can't forget about your quarterback now, Clifford.
Clifford, this was kind of his year to show people if he was the main man, and I think he's really done that. So, Miles, the Georgia Bulldogs won the championship last season and are looking to repeat this year, ranked number 1 in the country. They took on SEC South Carolina last week. The Bulldogs were able to do pretty much whatever they wanted to do, dominating South Carolina, 48-7. Miles, can Georgia go back-to-back this year?
I believe they can. I mean, they had, the top draft choice in the NFL. They had the most players
yeah,
picked.
they had so many defensive players go off the board, and, Trayvon Walker, all these big guys, Jordan Davis, these studs from Georgia. And you know what? People had questions about whether they could replace that and run it back. They have done just that.
They haven't lost a step.
They haven't lost a step. It's scary.
Mentality.
It's really scary. And, people are talking about early Heisman odds right now. If you ask me right now, it's Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett.
He's put up the numbers, him and his connection with his tight end,
my
Brock
goodness,
Bowers.
Brock Bowers. And last year, correct me if I'm wrong, he was a true freshman.
Yep, he was.
Brock Bowers has that size. He has that prodigy that you want out of not only an elite college tight end, but somebody who's going to take you to that next level within the NFL.
And he's still growing.
Oh,
he still
yeah.
has much more potential, much more upside.
Feed him the ball. He will eat up. And, he is a nightmare for one-on-one coverages. You can't, have your corners guard him because he's too big. You can't have, the linebackers guard him
keep up.
because he's too fast. He's a coverage nightmare for these defenses. And, Georgia has that all over the field. Whether it's Stetson Bennett, the defense. I think it all comes back to the coaching. Kirby Smart. Talk to me more about your feelings on Kirby Smart.
I love Kirby Smart. I like what he's done. I mean, he's shaping his game just like Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban shaped Kirby Smart because he was on his staff.
Yeah.
And I love the way Kirby Smart's coaching his team and where they're going.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
BYU entered week 3 ranked 12th, looking to beat Oregon on the road. Oregon ranked at 25, got off to a strong start, and the Cougars could not recover. Josh, Oregon won 41-20. Your thoughts on this game?
Whew. Well, if you want me to be honest, Miles, I think Bo Nix is overrated. I think Bo Nix is overrated because let's be honest. Started out at Auburn, right?
Yep.
Couldn't hack it there. Transfers his senior year to Oregon. If we look back, his first game against Georgia. What did they do to him? They terrorized that man.
Demolished
They
him.
demolished him. And you know what? After BYU lost to Baylor, they lost that confidence. I don't think BYU is the same team that they are now without Zach Wilson. I think that was their year to make something of it. I don't think BYU hasn't entered that elite realm team yet. It doesn't mean it's not possible, but I just don't see that possibility right now, especially with the way their quarterback situation is. I'm not overly impressed with their quarterback situation. At the end of the day, it all comes back to who's your man under center.
Yep.
If we look at Sean Clifford and Stetson Bennett, Sean Clifford struggled. He has a history of struggling. But you know what? He's kind of really silenced all the noise this year and backed it up with performance. I need to see that more from BYU. And you know what? This was Bo Nix. This is Bo Nix's redemption shot, to prove those haters wrong and silence those haters. So I would like to see Bo Nix mature in this and make a big step forward. So I'd like to see where that comes and that goes. But there's just too much uncertainty right now with Oregon.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on Bo Nix. I think he has great potential.
I don't know.
And I think his first game going up against Georgia is definitely a confidence ruiner.
Tough test, yeah.
That's a nice team. And I mean, going up against Georgia.
But answer me this. Why did you feel like he had to leave Auburn? He has family ties to Auburn. His dad went to Auburn. That's why he went to Auburn.
Yep.
So for me, that's the only question I have with him. If he couldn't hack it in the SEC, does he feel like he has a better chance to hack it in the Pac-12, which right now probably has easier competition?
I think, he made a smart decision in leaving, but he got better competition somewhere else where he can shine more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And show his gifts. And I feel like he's ready. He's ready to take that next step. It's just one game. He just want to have one off game.
We'll have to see what happens then. On the other side of this break, we'll have our reaction to the most exciting Week 2 NFL action. Don't go anywhere. In the Zone will be right back. Welcome back to In the Zone. This past week in the NFL had some pretty insane comebacks. We'll start off with one of 3 Week 2 AFC North, AFC East matchups between the Dolphins and the Ravens. Miles, what can you say other than holy cow?
I'm a Ravens fan, and I was disappointed.
I'm sure you were.
Our defense just had mental errors, like breakdowns in coverage where it leaves Tyreek Hill wide open. I think Tyreek Hill and Waddle both had at least 140 yards
over.
Receiving.
Yeah, Waddle had over.
It's disappointing to see that, and I expect more from Coach Harbaugh, especially since we were up 28-7 and we couldn't close it out.
Yeah, you got to look at the Dolphins, though, who they have and their assets and weapons. You got Tua at quarterback, who has been, like I said earlier, like we talked earlier with, Stetson Bennett, Sean Clifford, all those guys, kind of dealing with noise. Tua's got a lot of noise to deal with as well. And you know what? I think he might have finally silenced those critics. And so it's a big win. It's a big win. We'll see where it goes. But you guys do have a solid defense.
Yep.
And if we look and see what Tua did to your defense with the weapons he's got, that could be dangerous moving forward. Because not only do I think he's got some of the best receivers in the league, it's going to sound biased coming from a Penn State fan, I think he's got one of the best tight ends in the league too. Reliable, trustworthy, and he's always going to rack up those targets. I think the Dolphins, after this game, are going to gain a lot of confidence moving into other weeks. And I think we're going to see them be a real threat in that AFC South.
Well, all the headlines and news was pointed towards Tua in the beginning of the season. I
Yeah.
thought, like, in my opinion, this year was his either make or break year. I mean,
I
he's
thought
either going to
so
get
too.
re-signed or he's going to get released because he hasn't
I
done
know.
anything. But with all the product and everybody brought in,
I mean,
he should do at least something.
You got to think about it. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, those two receivers, they fly.
Speed.
Speed kills. It
Yes, it
does.
does.
And we saw it with your Ravens. You know, you guys have tremendous secondary coverage. And it's not like the Dolphins didn't know that. And yet they attacked it
They
anyway.
attacked it and
They
tested
attacked
us.
it anyway, and they had tested it, and they found something that really, really worked.
Tua did his thing, and as a Ravens fan, I'm disappointed, but
Yeah.
he played a great game.
Absolutely.
In another matchup between teams in those divisions, the Jets went to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Last week, the Jets heard Coach Robert Saleh say he's keeping receipts from everyone mocking the Jets' rebuild. Well, in week 2, Saleh and the Jets were able to make an entry on those receipts with an insane comeback to beat Cleveland 31-30. Josh, your thoughts on the game?
I do think the Jets are doing all the necessary, ingredients to make this rebuild happen, and I think they're almost there. The only one I'm pausing on there right now is the quarterback position.
Yep.
I think they're set in wide receivers. I think Garrett Wilson is a dog. We saw that this week, how he racked up, 8 receptions for 100 and some yards.
He
and
will get open
yeah,
and he will
he
catch
got
that
some
ball.
tutties. So Garrett, we saw that at Ohio State too. I think, they got a great running back in Breece Hall. That man can flat out fly. The only question, though, I do have, is it Joe Flacco or is it Zach Wilson, Miles?
Joe Flacco is an MVP. He was an MVP quarterback, and he's been leading the team like he's starting, and he's been starting for the last,
know.
2 years? Like he's
If
doing
we
his
look
thing.
at the league leaders in passing yards right now, he's atop of those standards. He's atop of the points. And, it's kind of funny because the list includes him, Carson Wentz, and I believe Matt Ryan.
Yeah. But I'm not going to discredit the Browns. Like, it was a special teams error where they missed the PAT, and I mean,
Yeah.
you have to win in all 3 aspects of the game: offense, defense, and special
Exactly.
teams. If one's not there, then the whole game.
Pack it up and go home.
Yep, exactly.
Pack it up and go home.
Nick Chubb did his thing.
I mean, yeah, Nick Chubb having him on my fantasy team is always a good sign.
Always a plus.
But no, I think you're right because one of the Jets players that I'm really high on, believe it or not, is Sauce Gardner.
Gardner.
I love Sauce Gardner, not just because he did a partnership NIL deal with Buffalo Wild Wings, but there's something about that man that has confidence, and he can back it up.
Oh, yeah.
He can back it up. So I think there's a lot of potential there with the Jets, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Can't wait.
Following tough losses in Week 1, both the Cardinals and Raiders were looking to bounce back in Week 2. Vegas nearly dominated early on, but Kyler Murray and the Cardinals came storming back on the last play of regulation. Arizona scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to send the game into overtime. In overtime, Marquise Brown dropped a pass on the 4th down, turning the ball over to the Raiders. Hunter Renfrow fumbled not once, Miles, but twice on the Raiders' overtime possession. Arizona recovered the second time and the second fumble and took it all the way to the end zone to win the game 29-23. Miles, what a heartbreaking way to lose for the Raiders.
You hate to be Hunter Renfrow in this case. It's
Yeah,
a
you really do.
real Debbie Downer. I mean,
Yeah.
fumbling once and then fumbling twice.
I mean, what are the odds of that?
For the Raiders to
Yeah.
win pick it up and win or the Cardinals to pick it up and win the game.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough spot to be in. See, if I'm a Raiders fan right now, I am entering the panic stage. I am. And here's why. You bring Devontae Adams over, right?
Yep.
And Derek Carr and Devontae Adams played together at Fresno State. Why was Devontae Adams not thrown to after Hunter Renfrow fumbled that ball the first time? If I'm Derek Carr, I am partially to blame for this. Because if you knew that your receiver, you put the ball in his hands once, and he came up short and fumbled, why are you going to go back to that same man on a high tense situation where
Game
you
time.
need to win the game?
Yep.
Why are you not putting that ball in Devontae Adams' hands?
Especially since he's your number 1 wideout. I mean,
And how much are you
college
paying
and-
this guy?
And they're not using him to his full capabilities.
That's what
if
I'm
they're gonna do
saying.
that. But I do think the Raiders are still in good shape. It's only week 2. It
It's
was
only week 2, but if you ask me personally, that's a game they needed to win.
Yes.
In Las Vegas, they needed to win that game. They needed to, find a way to use all their weapons. I mean, they haven't even used Josh Jacobs yet.
Nope.
I
Once
mean,
they get him involved, I
that
think,
man has the ability to break not one tackle,
No.
but the second and third tackle. He is the definition of a power running back. You use that man to get you the first down. So that way, you don't have, 3rd and 10 situations. You got to be smart about this. I think the Raiders are a top 5 team in the NFL.
They are.
If they use your talent correctly, which they have not done yet.
I think the problem is the Raiders are stressing the pass game so much with Devontae Adams and Hunter
Yes.
Renfrow that they left Josh Jacobs in the dust and
Yeah.
put him in the background in this case.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
On the other side of this break, we'll have a special report on what went down in Marauder Sports this past weekend. Don't go anywhere. In the Zone, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to In the Zone. I'm Ruby Mundok, and I've got a full recap of VILLE sports for you. Women's volleyball improved their record to 8-6 after sweeping Bowie State in 3 sets. The Marauders started out strong, winning the first set 25-12. Sets 2 and 3 were closer with final scores of 25-23, but the team held on and delivered a win. Maya Cascario helped Millersville out in the first set, recording 3 aces to put the Marauders up. Kylie Erisman and Emma Ludwig led the team with 8 kills each. The volleyball team will take on PSAC East rival Bloomsburg University next. VILLE football has had a rocky start, to say the least, losing their first 3 games so far. The Marauders took on Slippery Rock University this past weekend, losing with a final score of 14-45. They started out strong with a touchdown pass from Anthony Butler to Jaheim Morris, but after that started to fall, allowing Slippery Rock 4 straight touchdown drives. VILLE hits the road on the Westchester Golden Rams. Field hockey is off to a dominant start, going undefeated so far in the season. The team did not go easy on MOLLOY in the first ever meeting between the two teams, shutting them out 7-0 with 5 goals in the first half alone. Bree Harsh and Kristen Strijdom led the team with 2 goals each to help deliver VILLE the win. Millersville teams will continue to fight their way through the fall season, hoping to add more numbers to the win column. When In the Zone gets back, we'll have more NFL reactions for what has been an exciting start to the season.
AFC South foes Indianapolis and Jacksonville went toe-to-toe in Week 2 this past Sunday. Neither team played all that well last week. Jacksonville lost Doug Peterson's first game as the Jags head coach at Washington last week. As for the Colts, well, they were coming off a tie with the Houston Texans last week. Those struggles for the Colts continued this week as they failed to even get on the scoreboard, Miles. What is wrong with the Colts?
I think the issue is the Colts are trying to recreate what they did last year with Jonathan Taylor. I think every team's become accustomed to, okay, that's their top option.
Yeah.
They're going to be a running team, and they're going to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor until it stops, and then they'll throw the ball. Last year, their quarterback was Phillip Rivers. This year, it's Matty Ice. Both old quarterbacks that,
I think Matty Ice is an upgrade, though, if you ask me personally.
how?
I don't know. I mean, how many Super Bowls has Phillip Rivers been to?
Valid.
That's right.
Valid.
I mean, I
Alright.
know he lost in that terrible comeback win, but I think Matty Ice has still got some years in him, and I think he's a reliable quarterback that could potentially end up in the Hall of Fame. I do think, though, that if Jonathan Taylor is getting shut down this year, they got to turn to 2 people, Michael Pittman
Yep.
and Alec Pierce.
Pierce.
Alec Pierce, believe it or not. I know he's injured right now, but that man, when he played in Cincinnati, was a go-to target for Desmond Ridder because Alec Pierce had the ability to, first of all, catch the ball securely, but also get those rack yards after the catch. He was a guaranteed, 10, maybe 15 yards after the catch.
After the catch.
Because his ability to break tackles. In the NFL, you need that. You need that kind of guy that is going to be able to get you those 10 or 15 extra yards in clutch situations. So once he's healthy and comes back, utilize him more because I think he could have a very similar year to Chase Claypool's rookie year. Because if you think about it this way, Chase Claypool blew up in his rookie year because people were doubling down on Juju.
Yep.
I think people will double down on Pittman, which is going to leave Pierce an open, viable option.
Or you could use that double-headed sword in Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines as your back.
Exactly.
I mean, he's getting
maybe flex
he's getting the
Naeem
rock.
Hines out in a bootleg route, get him in the flat, something like that maybe. But fix things up that way. You're not just handing the ball off to Jonathan Taylor and just run down the middle. make it interesting.
The
Mix
Colts
things
can make
up.
it a little bit unpredictable. Like
Yeah.
running the ball with Jonathan Taylor.
Absolutely.
It's becoming a little
For sure.
too cliche.
Now let's transition over here to the Jags. What are your thoughts on that? Because I have a very hot take about the Jags that I want to drop on you right now.
Honestly, I love the Jags. Their new talent. I mean, signing that new deal with Christian Kirk. He's a great
Don't even get me
wideout.
started on that deal. Come on now, man.
I mean, Travis Etienne's starting to come into his own, and then Robinson, he looks like a mentor to Etienne. I think they're going to be really good.
This is what I'm going to say, and I'll leave us with this. I think Trevor Lawrence needs somebody else. I don't think he's the quarterback we saw in Clemson. So something is amiss there that needs to be fixed. I think Trevor Lawrence has the potential to be big in Jacksonville, but something has got to be fixed for that man in Jacksonville.
I feel you on that one. Joe Burrow and the Bengals were looking to rebound from last week's loss to Pittsburgh as they went on the road to take on Dallas this week. Dallas has had issues of their own to start the season. A lackluster offense performance was only made worse with the injury to Dak Prescott. Josh, I think it's pretty safe to assume that we all thought the Bengals were going to beat up on the Dallas Cowboys. What are your thoughts on that?
Miles, anything can happen any given Sunday.
Yep.
And I think we're going to truly realize that the Bengals were a fluke last year. I think that their main goal in the offseason was to go out and make their offensive line better, but somehow they made it worse. And I'll tell you why. How many times did Joe Burrow get sacked by my Steelers? And how many times was that man picked off by the Steelers?
Enough to get eye surgery and enough for an ice bath.
That is correct.
Maybe 2 ice baths after the game.
That's correct. I mean, there's a disconnect right now with the Bengals. I'm not sure what it is. And Jamar Chase, where is he at? Where is my man Jamar Chase at right now?
Well, Diggs, the cornerback from the Cowboys, is still a pretty good defensive player. I mean, you got talent on talent. I have Jamar Chase in my fantasy league, too. That's why I'm defending.
Trayvon Diggs is overrated.
Overrated?
Dude, look at his coverage percentages. The only thing he's racking up is picks, which, don't get me wrong, is impressive. But if you're looking at his coverage percentages, he's not that good. I mean, if there was multiple videos of him getting exposed in training camp to the fact where he actually ended up deleting his Twitter account.
Embarrassment right there.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't think Dallas has a strong secondary, but the only person who I think is going to lead Dallas to a potential playoff run is my man Micah Parsons.
Hey, defensive powerhouse down there in Dallas.
Defensive powerhouse at linebacker U. NFC West rivals Seattle and San Francisco went head-to-head with a lot to talk about for both teams. Last week, Seattle beat Russell Wilson and the Broncos thanks to Nathaniel Hackett. As for the Niners, they went to Chicago last week, and, well, let's just say they did not look good in their loss to the Bears. The start to Week 2 was not so promising for the Niners, as Trey Lance was actually carted off the field in the first half. Jimmy Garoppolo was sent in, and the Niners looked like a completely different team from last year. San Francisco took care of Seattle 27-7. Miles, what do you make of the Niners now that Jimmy G will most likely be the starting quarterback for the rest of the season?
I think it's a redo for Jimmy G.
I think so, too.
Last year, he took the 49ers to the NFC championship game where they lost to the Rams. They were this close. I think everybody put all that pressure on Jimmy G and how he couldn't put them that step above.
I agree.
I think this year, coming straight, right off the bench, he performed. I mean, he got them to win.
If you want my honest opinion, I don't think the NFL is rigged. But I think certain things happen within the NFL that cause people to think the NFL is rigged. The 49ers had ample time to trade Jimmy Garoppolo in this offseason. They held on to him. People were criticizing them for that decision because they were still paying him, and he was practicing separate from the rest of the team during training camp. This right here, Miles, is why they held on to him. Kyle Shanahan has no faith, no trust, and any kind of confidence whatsoever in Trey Lance.
Yep.
I hate saying this for Trey Lance's sake, and I really hope he rehabs and gets back on the field soon. He is not the 49ers guy. He never has been, and he never will be.
He's still young.
He's still young, but here's what, Miles. Kenny Pickett in preseason has turned eyes. And you know what? Steelers fans are chanting his name now more than ever. The organization has trust in him, and they want him there.
On the bench.
Not for much longer after this week. But I really think that there's something there with Trey Lance and the 49ers that they just don't like. They just don't like it. And I think that's why they held on to Jimmy G for so long, because we saw the impact he has on this team. Comes in and has a clutch performance. This is the Jimmy G we know. And this is the Jimmy G that I think we are going to see this year. You know, I think we talk a lot about on this episode quarterbacks having bounce back years and silencing the noise. He's one of these guys that I really think could have a blow up year this year. Get him on your fantasy team, people, while you still can.
Debo Samuel should get another heavy workload this week, too, as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Looking forward to seeing it. And that'll do it for this week's edition of In the Zone. I'm Miles Miller.
And I'm Joshua Gearhart. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time on In the Zone.